The fluorescent lights hummed like insects above the administrative corridor at Riverton Memorial Hospital. Noah Carter kept her hands visible loose at her sides, weight centered over the balls of her feet. Security Chief Ethan Shaw reached for her arm. He stopped short, palm hovering. He had seen that stance before. Not a threat, not a victim, someone ready. Patrick Doyle stood 3 feet away in a slate suit that had never seen blood. His face flushed the color of raw salmon. "You are finished here, Ms. Carter." He clipped the Ms. the way people do when they want to cut something down to size. "Ethan, please escort her off the property." Noah blinked once. The hallway smelled like lemon disinfectant with a metallic aftertaste that lived in the vents. A clock ticked in a glass office. She could hear the second hand more than she should. She folded her badge lanyard against her chest with 2 fingers and said nothing. Earlier that morning, the night shift coffee had burned to tar in a pot by the ER door. Noah slipped in through the ambulance bay wind off the front range, sliding under her scrubs. A disposable cup warmed her glove. She would not drink it. She never did. The caffeine lived in her bones anyway. The waiting room murmured with TV chatter and plastic chair creak. Triage monitors blinked green, yellow, red. Noah moved through intake with a rhythm that made space for breath. She touched a wrist, counted softly, watched a chest rise and fall against a threadbare sweatshirt. Under the glove, a seam of scar tissue tugged at her right hand when she flexed. A small ink mark at her left wrist flashed and disappeared beneath the cuff. Dr. Nisha Rao watched from the nurse's station. Hair pulled back, eyes that collected details and put them in order. She did not speak at first. Beside her second-year resident, Aaron Park tried to coax life from a tablet that kept freezing. The sliding doors opened. An elderly man shuffled in on his daughter's arm, sallow-skinned sweat beading along his hairline. Noah met them at the threshold. "Sir, I am Noah. I'm going to ask a few questions and place my hand on your wrist. Tell me if anything changes." He nodded, embarrassed to need help. Noah found his radial pulse, thready. She listened to the kind of breathing that tries to be casual and fails. She looked at the hollow above his collarbone and the way it tugged. Her eyes went soft-focused not on him but through him. She placed the diaphragm of her stethoscope. He flinched at the cold. "Rate your pain from 1 to 10. 6, maybe 7. It is not that big. It is not that bad." "When did it start?" "About an hour. Lunch did not sit right." Noah looked up. "Dr. Rao, I need a full cardiac workup in a room in 3 minutes." Aaron frowned. "His vitals are borderline. Protocol says we observe." "Protocol does not see what I'm seeing." Noah's gaze clicked to Aaron for 1 beat. Not a challenge. A calculation. Aaron shifted her weight back like a hand that had touched a stove and learned. A few minutes later, the old man was on oxygen EKG tracing trouble across paper. The cath team took him upstairs for a lesion that looked like a trap door. He would live because a window that small had not been wasted. Patrick Doyle heard about it before his second meeting. He did not care that the old man would meet dinner. He cared about the way a physician assistant had looked past a resident and called shots with attending weight. He scrolled incident reports on a tablet until his thumb ached. 4th time this month, the notes were precise. The outcomes were good. He closed the file carefully. The carefulness hid the urge to throw something. "We have hierarchies," he told his assistant through glass. "Liability, oversight, chain of command." The assistant watched a fly batter itself against a window. She did not answer. The break room was a rectangle with a dented microwave that rattled when it ran. Noah sat at the far table with a protein bar unwrapped and bitten once. The coffee beside her had gone chalk cold. She did not notice Dr. Rao take the chair across from her until the chair sighed. "Where did you train Miss Carter?" "George Washington, PA class of 21. "That is not the question I asked." Noah took another bite, chewed. The automatic sink hissed and stopped behind them. "Last week, the construction worker with the radial artery laceration," Rao said. "The way you closed. I have only seen it done like that in one place. Someone taught you to keep your hands moving while your eyes watch the room. YouTube is generous. You did not look down to tie. You watched the door. 6 exits if you count the window and the service hatch." Noah stood. The protein bar wrapper went into the trash. She held the empty cup and stared at it like it might tell her something. For a second, her mask thinned. Not off, just translucent. "I am doing my job, doctor." "That is what worries administration," Rao said. "That you are very good at it." A voice paged overhead. code gray and behavioral health. Someone wheeled a mop bucket past the door. The lemon smell fought a losing battle. Noah turned to leave. One more thing, Rao said. If I ask you to help me run triage in a surge, will you say yes? If the patients need it? Rao nodded. It was both the only answer and the most dangerous one. The administrative wing felt colder, though the thermostat lied. Patrick Doyle sat behind a desk with nothing on it but a phone, a pen, aligned with the edge, a picture of a boat. Noah took the chair without asking. She placed her badge on the desk of her own accord. He liked when people waited to be told. She did not. Ms. Carter, we are placing you on administrative leave pending review of repeated deviations from protocol and insubordination, effective immediately. People are alive because of those deviations. That is not for you to decide. Then whose decision is it? Yours. You do not touch patients. He breathed in through his nose and reached for the phone. Security, please come to Administration A, now. Noah watched the pen roll a small distance and stop at the frame of the picture. A boat on flat water. A thing that believed itself stable. Ethan Shaw arrived and took in the room in one sweep. Mid-40s service tattoo softened by time eyes that calculated without looking like they did. He rested his hand near his belt, not on it. We are leaving, Doyle said. Escort her. Noah stood. She did not tense. She did not plead. She tucked her badge lanyard into her pocket and stepped into the hallway. The floor wax felt tacky under her shoes. A woman at a copier glanced up and then away as if the sight might carry a charge. The corridor was empty in that airy way that happens between surges. Somewhere a baby cried and then fell quiet. Noah's pager buzzed against her hip. 3 short pulses. She felt them more than heard them. She could name the vibration pattern in her sleep. Ethan's hand hovered again. He had moved with people who moved like this before. He knew the posture. He lowered his hand. The overhead speakers clicked alive. A breath of static, then the voice that made rooms move. Trauma alert, multiple casualties, crane collapse at the Canyon Ridge site, all available staff to trauma bays. Noah looked at the double doors at the end of the hall. They opened onto a world she knew better than this one. She did not look back at Doyle. She did not speak. She walked toward the doors. They swung inward. Air rushed past thick with the smell of hot metal and wet concrete. A siren began to rise from the street. She reached for a gown on the run. Her hands did not shake. The trauma bays bloomed into motion. Plastic curtains snapped on their tracks. Carts rolled hard across the tile. A nurse handed Noah a gown. She slipped her arms through as she ran fingers finding the ties without looking. Aaron Park was already at Bay 1, eyes bright and too quick. Dr. Rao stood at Central with a clipboard she did not need. Her voice cut through the noise. We clear 1 and 2 for criticals. Labs on standby. Blood fridge unlocked. Respiratory at the ready. The first stretcher hit the doors. 2 medics brought in a young man whose chest moved like a broken concertina. Left ribs moved wrong. Skin gray with a wash of sweat. Air hunger on his face. Crush under a steel lattice. Arrested once on the ride, the lead medic said, while he compressed the sternum with steady arms. Decompressed left side in the field. Breath sounds improved, but he is fading. Bay 1 Noah said. Aaron, you are with him. You will need a chest tube and probably 2. Keep your landmarks tight. Noah looked at the man's neck veins and heard the rasp under the mask. Get a vent ready. Move. The second stretcher swung in on the heels of the first. A woman in a construction vest with a bar of rebar through her lower abdomen. Awake but drifting. Hands cold, lips white. Her breath came in quick little sips that never satisfied. Bay 2 Noah said, I want a trauma panel and type and cross for 8 units. Warm blankets, keep her still. No one pulls anything. We build the world around the metal. They flooded the room. Sirens spooled down as ambulance after ambulance disgorged bodies and voices. The ER took them in and made space where there had been none. Noah moved between bays with a narrow focus that still saw everything at the edges. She touched, counted, placed, redirected. A hand on a wrist, a finger at a throat, a palm on a cold forehead. She labeled not with tape, but with tone. Hall bed. Fast track. Wait. Now. Ethan Shaw stood near the intake doors and watched her work. The badge on his belt said security. The crossed scars on his knuckles said something else. He kept out of the way and listened as his radio chattered about parking and police lines in a news van that had decided rules were for other people. A stretcher came in with 2 patients, a forearm bent at a wrong angle, a scalp wound pumping a rhythm that wanted to be a fountain. Noah handed the scalp to a patient care tech. 2 hands here. Hard pressure. Follow my hand. Do not stop. She guided the tech's fingers until the bleeding slowed. Good. Breathe. Keep that. Then the 5th ambulance swung hard through the bay, and a boy sat up on the stretcher like he did not belong there. He smiled when he saw Noah. Half brave, half apology. I am okay. They said I should come anyway. I can wait. There are worse people. Noah looked at his color. She looked at the bruising across his left side where the seatbelt had kissed bone. The mark climbed higher than it should have for a simple lap restraint. It feathered toward his flank with a pattern she had learned to respect. His breathing was fast but shallow, and he did not use his belly. The muscles around his ribs did all the work. What is your name? Kai Bennett. 19. She placed her hand over his stomach without pressing. Take the deepest breath you can for me, Kai. He tried. The breath stopped part way. His mouth opened like a fish, and a thin line of panic crossed his eyes. He did not make a sound. Noah nodded to the medic. What did he look like on scene? Talking. Vitals solid. Walked to the rig. He kept saying he was fine. Trauma 3, Noah said. Now. Aaron, bring the ultrasound. Rao, I need blood ready in an open room. Aaron hesitated. His pressure is stable. We have 2 worse in 1 and 2. We will lose him in 10 minutes, and we will not see it coming. Noah was already pushing the stretcher toward Bay 3. Look at his breathing. Look where the bruising sits. He is guarding without knowing it. Rao met them at the door. Her eyes took in the room at speed. Monitor on, oxygen. Get the ultrasound on his right flank first. The gel was cold. The wand slid and found a pocket of darkness that did not belong between echoes of liver and kidney. Noah watched the screen without blinking. Free fluid. Aaron's voice came out small. Maybe a little. Noah pointed. It is not maybe. It is there, and it is collecting, and his body is paying for it while it pretends it is not. Type and cross now. Call for O. Negative in case we do not get it in time. Kai's hand found Noah's sleeve. He held on like he did not want to ask the next question. Am I dying? Noah's voice did not rise. You are bleeding inside, and we are going to stop it. That is the only thing you need to know. Aaron took a breath. Dr. Ortiz is 15 minutes out. We can stabilize and wait. He does not have 15. Noah's hands were already at the sink. Scrub, soap and heat, nails, knuckles, wrists. The ink at her left wrist flashed once and went dark under the water. She did not look at it. She dried fast and reached for sterile gloves. You cannot. Aaron's voice wavered. You are not. I know what I am not. Noah looked at her once. Then she looked at Kai and back at the screen. I also know what he needs. Tray, retractors, suction, laparotomy set. Now. Rao stood in the doorway for 1 second that felt longer. She looked at Kai's face, then at the ultrasound, then at Noah's hands. Do it. I will take responsibility. Noah stepped to the table. She met Kai's eyes, saw the trust there, saw the fear under it. You will feel pressure. You will hear things that do not make sense. Keep breathing. I am here. He nodded. The monitors traced numbers that were still good, numbers that lied. Noah marked the line with her gloved nail, midline, above the umbilicus. The scalpel was there when she asked for it. The first cut was clean, skin, fat, fascia, a careful lift to avoid what sits just under. Suction. The instrument hummed and cleared the view. Blood welled, not a gush, a steady, sure flood that did not belong in the open. Retractor. Hold there. Do not move unless I tell you. Aaron's hands shook a little and then steadied. Noah adjusted her grip for her. Less. Good. Right there. She worked by feel and sight in a kind of map her body remembered. The spleen showed itself as a bruised curve under the rib edge. The tear tracked along the capsule deep, but not complete. The main vessel pulsed intact. "Talk me through it," Noah said without looking up. Aaron blinked at the surgical field. "I see a capsular laceration. It looks deep. The artery is intact. We can salvage if we control the edges." "Good. Salvage when you can. Remove when you must. He is 19 and his immune system would like to keep this one." Clamp. Pressure changed. The bleeding slowed. Noah's left hand held the field open with a tenderness that looked out of place in a room that smelled like bleach and iron. Her right hand moved fast and exact. Needle driver. Interrupted mattress sutures. Even spacing. Consistent tension. No wasted motion. No extra words. Kai's pressure dipped and then climbed. A nurse called out the numbers. 90 over 50, 100 over 60. "He's coming back up. Do not watch the numbers," Noah said. "Watch your hands. If your hands are right, the numbers follow." Aaron breathed out. She found the rhythm of it. She matched Noah's pace without trying to lead. The door opened. A man stood in the frame with a cap on and his hands wet from the scrub. He took in the scene in one glance that landed on Noah's fingers and the field she had already made clean. He was tall with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen 100 rooms like this and still bothered to see this one. "Who authorized this?" "I did," Rao said from the corner. Her voice did not apologize. The man stepped to the sink and scrubbed again. He watched Noah while the water ran. The sound made a white line in the room. He dried gloved-gowned. He did not reach for the instruments. He did not push anyone aside. "Continue," he said. "I will close." Noah did not nod. She kept working. A suture placed exactly where it belonged. Another and another. The tear pulled to quiet. The bleeding gave up. She irrigated and watched for swell that would argue with her plan. There was enough room. It would hold. "Close," she said softly. "Layers. Respect them." She placed each layer like she meant it. The skin drew together under her needle in a pattern Dr. Rao did not recognize but understood. Tight, functional, built to keep a promise. The monitor steadied into a better song. Kai's face relaxed. He looked like a boy again instead of a statistic in a queue. Noah stripped her gloves and dropped them into the sharp spin. She put one hand on the bed rail. "You did well. Rest. Meet your mother when you wake." The man with the gray at his temples moved to the head of the bed and checked the lines Noah had already checked. He looked at the sutures and the time on the wall in the absence of mess. He looked at Noah. "Where did you train?" "George Washington," she said. "PA. That is not the answer." He glanced once at Rao. He returned his eyes to Noah. "I am Dr. Samuel Klein. And you can tell me the truth, or you can pretend you learned that on a video." Noah's palm brushed her left wrist. The ink there pressed against the glove line. She did not answer. Not yet. Rao stepped in. "Dr. Klein, we had no time. He would not have made it to your parking space." Klein nodded once. He was not angry. He was measuring. He looked back at the suture line. "I have seen that exact pattern in one place. Not in a hospital. In a paper with bad photos and good outcomes." Ethan had edged closer to the doorway. He stood like a piece of furniture that had always been there. His radio hissed with the sound of someone laughing 3 rooms away, wrong for a place like this. He turned the volume down. Kai slept. The room eased. The air felt heavy with things unspoken. Klein tapped the bed rail twice with his knuckle and turned for the door. "We are going to talk," he said. "Not later, not never, after you wash your hands." The overhead speaker clicked. The noise from the other bay swelled and then quieted. Noah looked at her hands. They were steady. They had been steady all morning. She pulled a new pair of gloves from the box and snapped them on. She stepped into the hall and the smell of lemon met the smell of iron again like 2 notes that did not belong together and still did. Aaron watched her pass. The resident swallowed and stood straighter and touched the place on her own wrist where there was no ink at all. Bay 1 had quieted into a hard, steady hum. The ventilator sighed. Aaron's chest tube bubbled where it should. Noah moved past the curtain and stepped into the next storm. A stretcher cleared the doors. A man in a torn safety vest lay on it with a short length of rebar lodged high on the right chest. Only 3 inches showed. The skin around the entry was puckered and pale. His mouth opened and closed for air that did not satisfy. His neck veins stood out like thin ropes. The monitor showed a heart that was running too fast to be useful. Possible cardiac involvement, the medic said. Lost pulses twice, got him back both times. Do not touch that metal, Noah said. We build care around it. Rouse slid to the bedside. Breath sounds are muffled. Pressure is 50/30, pulse is 140. Noah listened with her stethoscope pressed to the left chest. The heart sounds were distant, as if heard through a wall. She watched the pulse pressure on the monitor narrow. She watched the jugular veins at the neck. She felt the skin grow damp under her fingers. Pericardial tamponade. Erin opened her mouth. We should get a portable chest x-ray. We do not have time for pictures, Noah said. She looked up. Subxiphoid window, ultrasound, 18-gauge needle, 60 cubic syringe, betadine. A tech elbowed the ultrasound into place. The screen bloomed into gray. The heart moved inside a dark halo that did not belong. Fluid filled the sac. The chambers could not open. Klein stepped in and took the other side of the bed. Where is Morrison? In the OR, Rouse said. 90 minutes. Klein looked at the screen and the man's color and the math that did not add up. He met Noah's eyes and did not blink. Can you do this? Yes. Doyle's voice came from the doorway. Absolutely not. She is suspended. Ethan, remove her now or I call the police. No one turned. Noah cleaned the skin below the sternum with quick patient circles. The smell of betadine rose through the metallic air. She found the angle by feel. 45 degrees toward the left shoulder. She watched the ultrasound and felt the needle meet resistance and then give. The syringe drew back with a heavy pull. Blood slid into it dark and thick. 60. Then 80. The monitor answered in numbers. Heart rate fell through the 100 teens. Pressure crept up. The man's mouth closed. Air reached the bottom of his lungs and stayed a beat longer. Klein exhaled. He took the full syringe and handed it to a nurse. Set it aside so cardiothoracic can see it. Do not throw it away. Doyle pushed past Ethan and reached for the bed rail. You are all finished. This is a violation and you are complicit. Rouse stepped between Doyle and the patient. Her shoulders were small and did not move. You are interfering with emergency care. Leave this bay now. If you do not, security will remove you. Ethan did not touch Doyle. He positioned his body so the administrator could not see around him. The radio on his shoulder clicked once and fell quiet. His stance said no. The foreman's color warmed by a single shade. His eyes focused on the ceiling tile. He breathed. Klein's hands moved through the lines and pads like a pianist finding a calm refrain after a crescendo. He looked at Noah again. Your hands know these maps. That suture technique in 3. The pericardiocentesis here. Where did you learn? Noah wiped her gloves, stripped them, and tossed them in the bin. She did not answer. She kept her gaze on the foreman's chest, watching the rise and fall settle into a rhythm. The bay's doorway filled with a man in a dark suit that did not flex when he moved. He had hair clipped close to the scalp and a face that had weathered wind and command briefings. He did not look at the patient first. He looked at Noah. Lieutenant Colonel Carter. No one else spoke. The word hung there, rank in a civilian room. Doyle's mouth opened and shut. Rouse's eyes cut to Noah's wrist where ink hid under the cuff. Klein stopped moving. The man reached inside his jacket and produced a credentials case. Adrian Beck, Pentagon, Medical Command. He held the wallet open for the bare seconds it took Ethan to nod. Then he closed it and tucked it away. You have been difficult to find, Doctor. Noah's shoulders tightened under the gown. I am a physician assistant here. You are an MD, Dr. Carter. Johns Hopkins. Surgical residency at Walter Reed. 8 years with Army Special Operations Command. He said the facts like weights set down in a row. The papers said you resigned. The reality was different. Klein tilted his head. The suture pattern, the timing, the way she moved. He spoke to Beck without taking his eyes off Noah. I read a paper years ago. Field stabilization in austere environments. The Copper 10 protocol. 10 minutes to control a bleed and hand a life back to its own body. The photos were grainy. The numbers were not. 47 documented saves, Beck said. The author disappeared after a last deployment with a code name that did not explain anything. Operation Ash Lantern. Doyle found a voice that did not carry far. This is absurd. If she is who you say she is, why is she working below her license? Noah did not look at him. She looked at Beck. You could have left this alone. We tried, Beck said. He stepped closer, not enough to crowd enough to be in range for a quiet conversation. We are building a joint trauma unit that will braid military and civilian protocols so that nights like this break fewer people. We need someone who has seen both sides and can choose when the math does not match the policy. Noah wiped a smear of betadine from the foreman's skin with a folded towel. She placed the towel in the trash. The room smelled like lemon again. The smell had come back with the air conditioning. I am not interested. Because of Ash Lantern, Beck said not cruel, not gentle. The name held a ruin behind it. He glanced at Rao and Klein, 11 children, a village that had not been on the map. An extraction window that struck the clock like a fist. Command said, stabilize your team and leave. You stayed and operated with a headlamp and a satchel while the walls shook. Klein's hands went still at the chart. Aaron stopped pretending to write. 3 operators died later, Beck said. They told you those deaths lived on your ledger. They cut you loose with medical language in a box you could put in a closet. They called it moral injury. His mouth pulled into a shape that was not a smile. We learned what happened after the files stopped being redacted. Noah did not ask for the folder, but Beck set it on a metal tray as if he were placing gauze. Photocopies under plastic sleeves, grainy images, lines of black where names lived. Enough clear words to make a picture. A strike called by the target. A comms leak that had pumped location data while everyone thought the net was secure. A mission that was a trap before the first order came down. Your men were dead when they left the wire, Beck said. Not because you stayed, because someone else pulled a string and the system did not see the hand on the string. He swallowed once. You saved 11 children who would have been killed to clear evidence. That part never changed. Noah looked down at the plastic sleeve. She turned one page and then another. A photo of a wall with a painted sun, a diagram of a network map with a line that bent where it should have run straight, a signature where there had not been one. You came here and cut your own life to size, Beck said. You worked where a badge could hide the past if you held it at the right angle. I am here because we owe you a correction and because the world bleeds in ways that need you. Doyle stood as if to reclaim ground that had shifted under him. Correction, what does that even mean? Beck did not look at him. He looked at Noah. It means the insubordination charge is vacated. It means the discharge is revised to honorable. It means you were right and the paper finally admits it without fanfare. It means we are asking you to help fix a thing instead of hiding from it. Klein set a hand on the rail at the foreman's bedside. He watched Noah rather than speak for her. Rao did the same. Ethan kept his attention on the doors. The foreman made a small sound and the monitor answered with steadiness. The pericardial drain had bought him time. The room expanded by an inch as if someone had cracked a window. Noah closed the folder. She set her palm flat on it for a beat. The ink at her wrist pressed into the paper through the glove. She lifted her hand and the page was unmarked. The overhead speaker clicked. Static breathed into the pause. The operator's voice came out level and loud. Code Black. Mass casualty event. Bridge failure on the I-70 overpass. Estimated 40 or more. All hands to trauma. The ambulance bay filled with noise and heat. Diesel brakes scorched rubber. Nurses hustled extra gurneys into the hall. Noah moved to the threshold and split the chaos into lanes with her voice. We stage criticals in 1 and 2. Overflow in the corridor. Green tags to fast track. Yellow to observation. If you have 2 hands, you will use them. A fire captain reported as they rolled the first wave inside. Bridge failure, multiple vehicles down. Entrapments. We split extrication between both ends. More coming. They brought a man with his chest distended high and silent on the right. His eyes were wide and glassy. His breath came in little shallow sips that failed before they began. Tension pneumo, Noah said. Needle now. She found the second intercostal space with 2 quick fingers and drove the catheter to the hiss that meant air and relief. The man pulled a breath that reached bottom and his eyes focused on the ceiling tiles. She mapped him toward Bay 4 with a palm to a shoulder. Breathe with me. In. Out. Good. The second stretcher carried a woman whose jeans bloomed red at the thigh. A medic had wrapped a belt high and tight. It was not tight enough. Blood soaked the webbing like a dark flower. Tourniquet, Noah said. Real one. Higher. Tighter. You with me. She caught the eye of a medical student frozen at the edge of the hall. Name, Leo Santos. Put your hands here. Hard. Yes, harder. Feel the pulse under your fingers. Now feel it disappear. That is the point. Do not let it come back. Leo set his face and held like it meant something personal. Sweat slid down his temple. He did not look away. Aaron rushed past with a chest tube tray. Rao dragged an ultrasound stand that wobbled. Klein stood at central and made space by ignoring whoever thought they were more important than the patient attached to the sound they made. Ethan kept the doors clear with a quiet gravity that made people listen. Noah saw the room in squares and arrows. She placed bodies into paths that would keep them alive. She stopped once to put a finger on a teenager's carotid and tilt her head to open a blocked airway. She pressed a palm to a shoulder and told a father to keep talking into his son's ear. She told a nurse to hold a pelvis closed with a sheet and a knot. The nurse asked how tight. Tight enough that your knuckles blanch. She showed her own white knuckles so the other woman could copy the color. A man staggered in with glass peppered into his scalp. He bled bright and loud. Noah pressed his hand to the wound and layered gauze over it. She locked his elbow with hers to teach his body where the pressure lived. Do not look at the blood. Look at me. Keep it there. You are doing it. She heard Ray at her shoulder without needing to look. We are one surgeon down. Orthopedics is inbound. Vascular was across town when the call hit. Blood bank is already on second round. Then we keep the ones we can keep, Noah said. Severity plus survivability. If you catch them before they tumble, they stand. If they fall too far, we do not drag the whole room with them. Aaron met her eyes. The resident heard the rule and hated it and accepted it. Aaron's hands found a rhythm that belonged to someone older than she was this morning. They brought in a boy with a steering wheel imprint across his chest and a breath that whistled wrong. Noah placed a seal over a sucking wound and listened until the whistle quit making itself important. They wheeled a woman with a crushed pelvis that swallowed blood like a drain. Noah wrapped a binder with a sheet and a knot and turned the tide a fraction. They pushed a man whose arm ended above the elbow and whose face kept trying to make jokes because that is what faces do when they cannot understand what the body has lost. Leo kept pressure like it was his job, and today it was. Ethan angled his body at a camera crew and walked them back a step at a time. Doyle appeared at the periphery suit, without a wrinkle voice, without a place to land. You cannot run this unit without clearance. There are protocols. Rao did not even look up. Then write me up for saving people. Stand out of the way. Klein slid into Bay 1 where Aaron had a chest open to the air. He took her through each step with a low, steady tone that made her hands sure. He did not take over. He placed confidence where it belonged. A lull that was not a lull hit the room like the eye of a storm. For a heartbeat, there were enough hands where they were needed. Then 2 new stretchers rolled in from the same crew, pushed hard by men who had run uphill. The first carried a man in his 60s with a pelvis mashed flat under a dashboard, and the gray look of someone whose blood was on the floor of a road. His eyes were open and clear. He scanned the room like he was counting exits and threats. His voice came thin, Carter. Noah moved to the side of the stretcher. Sir, stay still. We have you. Kandahar. Convoy hit a roadside bomb. You worked on me in a schoolroom with chalk dust in the light. Told me not to die because you were tired. He tried to smile and coughed red. Name came out between pushes of breath. Tom Rourke, Sergeant Major, retired now. Looks like we meet again. Rao's eyes flicked to Noah, and then to Beck, who had taken a place at the edge of the bay with the look of a man who had spent too long in rooms where outcomes were graphs. Klein laid a palm at Rourke's pelvis and felt the give that should not exist. He did not say the words. Noah saw them anyway. We need vascular, and Ortho Rao said. We need everything, Klein answered. Rourke found Noah's wrist and held. His fingers were cold. I trust you. If you need to let me go, say it to my face. Noah let him feel the pressure of her hand, and then she set his hand back on the sheet. Not today. They ran a rapid infuser. The blood hung like dark garnet in the line. The monitor made a nervous sound. Noah looked at the number and then at Rourke's face and then at Klein. We go now, Noah said. Pack the pelvis. Find the bleeder. Fix what we can and hold what we cannot. I want orthopedics page to meet us inside. Call vascular out of whatever traffic eats them and tell them there is a bed waiting in a field that needs hands. Rao nodded and started the calls. Beck said nothing, but his phone was already to his ear, voice clipped and low. Doyle lifted his chin to argue, and Ethan put a hand in the air without touching him. The hand said no. Doyle looked at the hand and stepped back. They pushed Rourke toward the OR with Noah at the head, Klein at his hip, Aaron on the blood. Leo stepped out of the path with his hand still pressing another, life closed. His face had a streak of blood across one cheek he did not know was there. He watched and learned without asking. Noah scrubbed while the orderlies clipped the sheet free. Water ran hot and relentless over her fingers. The ink at her wrist glimmered once and disappeared under the sleeve. The smell of antiseptic climbed into the back of her nose until she could taste it. She closed her eyes for 1 second and saw a painted sun on a wall. She opened her eyes and stepped to the table. Klein placed the drape, ready. "Ready," Noah said. They opened with respect and speed. The abdomen spoke the language of damage. There was blood where there should not be blood. Noah's hands worked from known to known again. She packed the pelvis with laps until the field answered with less flood. She chased a tear along an iliac branch and pinched and clamped and tied until the red eased into oozing that the body could argue with on its own terms. She asked for suction and for more suction and then for quiet. She listened for the clue under the sound of machines. Orthopedics arrived with a frame and a plan. External fixator. Stabilize the ring. Make a space where blood could stop making bad decisions. Vascular slid into place at Noah's left and took a piece of the picture as if it had always been theirs. They spoke little. They named vessels. They claimed and closed and handed back. Erin kept the counts and the rhythm. She read Noah without needing the words. When Noah needed a clamp, it was there. When she needed a retractor shifted a half-inch, Erin's hand moved that half-inch. Sweat ran down Erin's neck and collected at the collar of her paper gown. She did not see it. She watched the field and matched its breath. Work's pressure dropped, held climbed. The monitor wrote a story that changed its mind and then settled into something that wanted to keep going. Klein watched the numbers but kept his voice quiet. Steady, good, hold. Noah looked at the field and saw it agree. She closed planes back on themselves with neat economy. She placed each layer as if sealing a promise. She said close when she meant it and the team closed. Vascular tied a last stitch. Ortho set the frame. The pelvis stopped acting like a broken door and started acting like a structure again. They stepped back together. Noah stripped her gloves and flexed her fingers. They were stiff and hot and clean. She looked past the numbers because the numbers had followed. Rourke lay quiet with his eyes closed and his mouth easy. Klein let out a breath that he had forgotten to take. Rao leaned in the doorway with a clipboard and eyes that had been to war and back from an office. Beck stood behind her with a phone, finally silent. "How is he?" Klein said. "Alive," Noah said. "For now, that is the truth that matters." They wheeled Rourke toward recovery, and the hallway caught them with its smell of lemon and its hum that never stopped. The ER beyond the doors called like surf. Voices, alarms, wheels. Noah peeled off her gown and felt the weight of it leave her shoulders. She touched her left wrist once and then dropped her hand. Leo was at the bay when she returned. The tourniquet had done its mercy. The patient under his hands was talking about a dog that would need walking. Leo's arms trembled. He grinned a little through lips that had gone too dry. "You held," Noah said. He nodded. "I did not let go." "Good. Keep not letting go." She turned and the room shifted to make space for her again. A new stretcher rolled in. The floor showed a record of what had been carried across it. The air tasted like iron and something sweet. A monitor tried to convince everyone that things were simple. Everyone ignored it until they made it true. Erin caught Noah's sleeve. Her eyes were tired and bright at once. "Teach me the thing you did with the iliac, the way you saw it before I saw it." "Watch the skin tone at the edges," Noah said. "Listen to the suction when it changes pitch. Let your hands feel the pulse where you cannot see it. Your hands will tell you before the machine does." Erin nodded and stood taller. She wiped her brow with the back of her wrist and missed a line of blood that had already dried there. Noah stepped back into the lane she had made at the start of the surge. Bodies and voices bent to the shape of it. The bay curtain snapped on its track. A distant siren began to wind down as another rig took its place at the dock. She reached for a fresh pair of gloves and snapped them on. Her hands were steady. The ER settled into a late quiet that was not quiet. Monitors hummed. Someone laughed in the wrong place and stopped. The lemon cleanser rose through the iron and plastic and made the air thin. Noah washed her hands at a sink that had never stopped running long. The water hit the backs of her wrists and turned hot enough to sting. She dried and followed the corridor lights to a small conference room with a fogged window and a table that had seen too many elbows. Adrian Beck sat at one end, with a folder that looked heavy only because everyone wanted to see inside. Dr. Klein leaned on the back of a chair without sitting. Dr. Rao sat with her hands folded and her eyes clear. Ethan took a spot by the door where he could see the hall. Patrick Doyle had placed his pen parallel to the table edge and his boat picture at a perfect angle. His eyes were red in a way that screens did not cause. Beck opened the folder. He did not make a speech. He slid a document across the table until it stopped in front of the NOAA. Department letterhead. Signatures layered like a fence. The sentences were clean and plain. The charge vacated. The discharge amended. A commendation added for actions that saved 11 civilians under hostile fire. No redaction blocks. No names erased. Noah read each line with the patience of someone who expected the trapdoor that did not come. The ink at her wrist ticked under her glove line like a pulse. She placed her palm on the paper. She felt the texture of it through the latex. She lifted her hand and the surface was smooth. Doyle cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology." There was no ceremony in the words. "My brother died at the VA, sepsis that should have been caught. I have been holding control like a shield since then, counting rules like they could keep me from thinking about it. You made me feel that shield bend. I reacted like a man who did not want to be wrong." He set a white envelope on the table and lined it with the pen. "My resignation, effective now. Effective." He reached into a second folder and produced a single-page proposal. He handed it to Noah with both hands. "The hospital needs a director of trauma services, full authority to set protocols, to call staffing, to make decisions at the bedside without waiting for a form. Pick your team. I will recommend and then leave this building." Rao watched Noah without speaking. Klein's mouth moved once and then stopped. Beck's eyes stayed on Noah's hands. Noah studied the page. The words were bare. The power inside them was not. She looked at Beck. "Your unit. I will not wear a uniform. I will not sit in a chain of command that can call me off a patient. Consultant only with full latitude to write what I know and teach it to people who can use it." Beck nodded. "Done." Noah placed the hospital page beside the exoneration. "I take the director role if we build a training program that means more than a press release. Anyone with field experience can come. Veterans, medics, nurses, PAs. We turn what they know into credentials that matter here. No gatekeeping for people who learn by holding arteries closed in the dark. We build a scholarship fund for refugee medical students in the names of the 3 operators who died on Ash Lantern." Klein let out a soft breath. Rao smiled without showing teeth. Beck said yes. Doyle said yes. Ethan did not move. Noah looked at the 2 pages and then at the hands that had placed them there. She signed her name where a line asked for it. The pen left a steady trail. The room adjusted by a degree the way a body adjusts to a new weight it had needed all along. A knock at the door broke whatever came next. Ethan opened it. A man stood there in a dress uniform that fit like it had been made for his shoulders. He was older, with a face that had learned the weather and chose to live outside anyway. He held a triangular case and a photograph of a young man standing in desert light. "General Robert Hale," he said. He did not offer a hand. He set the flag case on the table and the photo beside it. "My son was Corporal Mason Hale. He was one of the 3. The words came out clean. He kept his back straight. "I came to look you in the eye, to tell you that my boy died because someone betrayed your team. Not because you stayed. He would have wanted you to stay. He believed in protecting people who needed it. He would have liked that you did not ask permission." Noah's fingers hovered over the glass of the photograph. The young man's smile had a tilt to it. His eyes were bright and sure. She touched the edge of the image and felt paper and a ridge in the frame where someone had repaired a crack. The general lifted the flag case and placed it in her hands. It weighed less than it looked. Her hands shook once. She held the weight and breathed. "Thank you," she said. He brought his right hand up in a salute that did not belong to any manual. It belonged to a father. He let it fall and stepped back into the hallway with a nod to Ethan that meant he did not need a path cleared. His boots clicked and faded. Noah set the flag on the table. She looked down at the ink at her wrist. The glow from the overhead fixture found it for a second and then lost it. She pressed her palm there and then released. They left the room and the hospital took them back. The overnight crowd thinned. The sunrise tilted the windows into small mirror planes. The city stirred. In a recovery room, Tom Rourke slept under a frame that held his pelvis in a stubborn geometry. In Trauma 3, Kai Bennett snored like a boy who had outrun something and did not know it yet. The next weeks grew a scaffold around Noah's decision. Paperwork bent to new shapes, meetings turned into equipment arrays and curriculum drafts. Dr. Klein and Dr. Rao built rosters and drilled a rhythm into the new team until the hallway sounds changed. Erin found herself leading a teaching huddle and did not realize it until later. Leo learned that his hands had two settings, delicacy and force. He used both. 6 months lived inside a stack of small wins and some losses that did not leave loudly. The day the program graduated its first class, the conference room wore a different face. Charts along one wall showed triage times cut down by minutes that had started to matter. Survival in the first golden hour climbed. Photos of the cohort lined another wall. 27 faces, some with short hair and old scars, some with tired eyes that were awake in a new way. Noah stood at the front in a white coat that carried her full name. The fabric felt less like a costume than she had feared. She did not hold a pointer. She held a stack of note cards she did not use. Dr. Rao stood beside her with shoulders straight. Dr. Klein occupied a corner like a tree that made shade. Reporters perched in the back. Administrators filled a row with crossed legs and polite attention. Beck wore a suit that had learned to relax. Doyle's seat stayed empty. Noah did not lecture. She told the room what had changed, using the room itself as evidence. The ER sounded different in the hours they had studied. The staff moved differently in the halls. The crash cart reorder included tools no one here had asked for a year ago. She named 2 cases by date and room number and the exact color a face turned before it started to improve. She did not say why it mattered. The faces of the people in chairs answered that without help. She lifted a hand toward the back row. Kai Bennett sat there in a fresh paramedic uniform he kept tugging into place. His mother cried without wiping her cheeks. Tom Rourke sat 2 seats down with a brace on and a grin that looked earned. His hand rested on the wheel of his chair in a way that said he would not be sitting in it forever. At the end of the row, a young woman held a backpack to her chest, like a shield and a keepsake. Her scarf was a bright blue that made the room feel less gray. Noah recognized the shape of her face from a grainy photo of a painted sun on a wall. The girl looked back and did not look away. After the questions and the applause that sounded like a manual clapped shut, the girl waited until the room emptied. She walked up with a cautious grace that had learned to move fast when it had to. "My name is Samira. Your headlamp had a crack. You kept tapping it so it would stay on. You told me to count my breaths in 4s. She touched her chest and counted 1 measure under her breath. "I wanted to say thank you. I brought you this." She unfolded a paper she had kept too long in a bag with books. A photo. Teenagers in winter coats outside a school. A soccer ball in the air. She pointed to a girl at the center with the scarf pulled high on her chin. "Me. I got into a pre-med program in Seattle. I will try to do work like yours. Maybe not the same." She smiled with her teeth. "I will try." Noah felt the floor under her feet like a proper surface. She took the photo and did not try to make words fit. She touched Samira's shoulder once, light. Samira nodded and stepped back. Dr. Klein crossed the room and spoke low. "Your numbers speak for themselves. The part we cannot count spoke louder today." Dr. Rao joined him and tipped her head toward the door. The hospital had refused to stop needing them. Ethan appeared at the threshold with a clipboard he did not need. He gave Noah a look that was both question and summary. She nodded. He held the door. In the hall, a man in a dark suit waited with his phone quiet. Beck did not use it. He watched the team collect and form. He looked at Noah. He did not say anything about policy or budgets. He touched 2 fingers to the edge of his folder and stepped back to let them pass. Noah handed the folded flag to Samira and asked her to keep it safe for a little while. Samira held it with 2 hands like an assignment she wanted to get right. The blue field looked deep against the white of her sleeves. Noah turned toward the ER. The lights along the ceiling drew a path without trying. The smell of lemon met the iron again. A monitor alarm chirped once and then settled. She pulled a fresh pair of gloves. The cuffs snapped against her wrists. Her hands were steady. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.